Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more edition of Let's Talk, the first one in 2024. I'm really glad to start the fourth year of this activity, of this talk, right? It's a great pleasure to be every month bringing up some topic for you. Today, we'll be exploring the concept of cosmic consciousness or cosmic consciousness. It's often described as a heightened and expanded state of awareness where individuals experience a profound connection to the universal cosmos. This term roots in various spiritual and philosophical traditions, but our guests today will offer insights from the conscientiological perspective. But first and foremost, it's essential to bear in mind the principle of this belief. Don't believe in anything, not even what we say here in our conversation. Experiment, have your own experiences, right? Your own experiences. This is what matters indeed. Let me introduce now our team today. I have here my cue card, right? Because their CV, it's not simple. Ulisses Schlosser, welcome Ulisses to one more Let's Talk. Thank you very much for your participation. Ulisses is a psychologist researcher, right? With publications in cosmic conscientiology. He's the author of the Neological Dictionary of Paraphenomenology and a member of the NGO Alternative Perspective in Global Concerns, APGC. He has been a volunteer in Conscientiology since 1989 and as an instructor since 1999. Thank you, Ulisses, for your participation today.
Thank you, Mario. I'm very glad to be here again with you. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Great to have you here. Rodrigo Marchiolli is a lawyer and university professor, PhD candidate in general theory and philosophy of law, and holds a master's degree in human rights. He has been a volunteer in Conscientiology since 2011 and as an instructor, right, since 2013. Additionally, Rodrigo is an author of books, encyclopedia entries, and articles, particularly in the field of Conscientiology. Thank you very much for your participation, Rodrigo, today.
Thank you, Mario, for the invitation, for the crew, for being here, supporting our work, and good afternoon for everyone that is watching us.
Very good, Rodrigo. Our conversation is based on consciential paradigm from the neuroscience conscientiology. What is conscientiology? Conscientiology is a science that studies the consciousness as a whole with all their bodies, existences, experiences, acting, and many multi-existential dimensions, right? Consciousness, we call it consciousness is me, it's you, each one of human beings on this planet. For this, we have a base of 7 pillars in which our studies are grounded, right? The pillars are bioenergies, multidimensionality, pluri-existentiality, self-research, cosmoethics, universalism, and whole soma. This Let's Talk is an event held in English at ASSIPI. ASSIPI is International Association of Intersubstantial Parapsychism. It's a consciocentric institution. It's one of the 23 consciocentric institutions that we have, more or less, if I'm not wrong. It's specialized, and ASSIPI is specialized in the study, research, development, and the practical use of parapsychism. ASSIPI in English is a project that aims to disseminate the ideas of conscientiology worldwide. So let's get started with our topic today, experiencing cosmic consciousness. But I would like to start with the basics, right? The definition of cosmic consciousness. What is it all about?
Yeah, it's a tough question, but Ulisses would like to start with answering that. If not, I could say, if you let me say, Ulisses, something about this. I think cosmic consciousness, first of all, I think it's important to emphasize that cosmic consciousness, it is a projection of the consciousness. This is the first point I would like to highlight here because there is a lot of misconception about cosmic consciousness. And in the conscientiological perspective, let's say, this is what we assume, that cosmic consciousness is a kind of projection of the consciousness. So we have out of body experiences, and this is the most common term to say about projections of the consciousness, lucid projections or conscious projections of the consciousness. But in conscientiology, I don't know if I could say that, but we put together the cosmic consciousness experience in the projectiology world, or the projectiology science, let's say like this. And this is the first point. So I think to better understand what is cosmic consciousness, we should first understand what is a out-of-body experience. Because cosmic consciousness, I think I could say also that cosmic consciousness is one of the, or if not the most ultimate experience in the projectiology world. So I think to start, it's a good start. I don't know if Ulisses would like to complement something here.
Yes, very good, Rodrigo. Thank you. We understand that cosmic consciousness is an inner condition of the consciousness. And it's a kind of condition of very clean perception of the consciousness itself and integrated with the universe around in a way that the person, the consciousness, feels an integration with everything. And together with that, there is a kind of feeling of exultation, a high level of ethics. We may call it cosmoethics. But essentially, it seems to be a very clean perception of the inner consciousness and everything around. So it is essentially a phenomenon about perception.
Yes. And I think continuing what Ulisses said, I think this perception of this quality of perception it happens in in an altered state of consciousness. So it is a state which we perceive things in a totally different way, which we are conditioned or educated to perceive with our physical body. So it's very interesting because we have the opportunity to know better who we really are and what is the ultimate reality of the consciousness. So I think to start it, it's a very interesting start. I think you could put some more questions here, Mario, and we could develop on that, because if we start to develop by our own on that, it's almost the whole presentation here.
I would like to add something more. I would like to add. Well, in general, we are not aware how polluted our mind is. We live in a polluted world. If we consider our thoughts, our emotions, a lot of wrong ways of thinking, prejudices, all that together. As an ultimate understanding, cosmic consciousness should be something very simple to understand. If we admit what is a pure perception, the point is that's very hard to reach in a way that, in general, we don't feel, we don't perceive our own nature because we suppose that we are very polluted. So this is another way to understand the core of this phenomenon.
Very interesting what you said. I would like just to touch this part of what you said with something that Rodrigo had said before, which is when we talk about cosmic consciousness, we are talking about out of body experience. And I have seen by my own experience that the out of body experiences in different degrees or in different features, right? They show us different things. For example, the simply, let's say not so simple, but just the fact of leaving the body, we know more about ourselves, right? Because we understand and see ourselves from a different perspective, from a multidimensional perspective. And then we have different layers of knowledge outside of the body. Then we have, we can name it some, right? Okay, an out of body experience. Then we have an extra projection, which is outside of the planet, or we may have a paradidactic projection or cosmic consciousness or near death experience. All of them show us something new, especially in a recycling mode. I would like you guys to talk about this a bit. I mean, how recycling, how reframing these experiences might be to the individual who go through it. But before that, I would just go back to the basic to ask you, Rodrigo, why did you start to study this more profoundly, more seriously? Because I know that you guys have a course about it. We're going to talk about this course as well. But now, how did you, Rodrigo, started studying this more profoundly?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Mario, for the question. And I have to say that I was kind of obliged to study more about cosmic consciousness because in the early 2013, in January 2013, actually was at, I think it was 2013 that I had an experience which I considered was a cosmic consciousness. So I had this experience. It was very shocking for me and very absurd in everything that happened because it was totally different from my reality. We are used to perceive things and to live in a way, and cosmic consciousness reveals a reality which is totally different from the point of view that we have in the physical world. So I was very impacted by that experience. So I was kind of obliged to study more about that. So I started that study, but there were some friends there was actually one friend that I talked about this experience, and he cheered me to present this experience in a forum we had in IIPC in São Paulo, the Institute of Projectiology in São Paulo, which is also an Institute of Conscientiology. And I had to prepare myself to that presentation. So I just started to study cosmic consciousness because I consider I had one, and that is basically the reason. And I also saw at that time in 2013 that experience had a lot of potential for me. And I think this connects to the other questions you asked us about the recycling, the potential to recycle ourselves. And I saw not just that, not just that potential to do some recycles, some profound recycles in myself, because at that state, I wouldn't like to come back. This is a very interesting point, and I would like to return to that. So I would like to make a reverse engineering, to understand how I reached there. I had to study about the phenomena, to understand how I reached there, in order to understand how could I get there another time, or permanently. I would like to understand how could I achieve that state permanently. So I had to study a lot to try to understand some things that could help me in this way. But I was saying that the potential is not only for recycling, the inner recycling process that we have in our development as consciousness, but also the potential to the knowledge potential in a way that we can really understand what is the probably one of the ultimate conditions or realities of the consciousness. So there is a very strong potential not only to transform ourselves in better consciousness or better person, but to know more about ourselves and our own reality, and not only as consciousness, but the multidimensional reality, the inner reality and outer reality. So these reasons, I think we could list from what I said, 3 or 4 reasons that make the study of the phenomena very important to me.
Very good, Rodrigo. I have another question for you, but I'm just asking Ulisses first. One thing that I've got here. Ulisses, you have written things about cosmo consciousness, right? So, what was the order of this? First, you wrote about it, then you had the experience, or you had experience, then you wrote about it.
Well, my my personal experience is quite different from Rodrigo. I consider that I didn't have this phenomenon. I didn't have the full experience of the cosmic consciousness, but I developed skills to get close to it. And I would say that this path developed step by step. Gradually, I improved my psychic condition through out of body experiences. And together with that, I was studying and developing self knowledge in terms of cognition. I call it paracognition, the way of functioning in the extra physical dimension, how our mind works in the extra physical dimension. I study and I research this subject for many years, more than 30 years. And my personal experience out of the body improved a lot with this kind of knowledge. And together with that, I was writing and researching. So altogether, I was developing myself in terms of extra physical experiences. I was studying, and the most important condition is that very early in my life, I started working professionally with existence and in different ways. So if someone could ask, what could we recommend for one person to develop this condition, I would say to work professionally in any kind of existence. If you can be a professional, together with that, if you can develop your level of ethics as much as you can. So, if you study the subject, if you practice helping people in a professional way, and if you are also interested in developing your sense, your moral sense, all those things together uh, very probably will help to expand your consciousness. So I experienced this process in my life. And step by step, I started experiencing expansions of consciousness, each time more significant, in a more significant way. See? So 10 years ago, I noticed that I could write specifically about that. And I started publishing about this subject because I came to the conclusion that everything was converging in this way. And it was a kind of synchronicity that exactly at that point I met a group of people who researched this subject. It is an international organization of researchers, philosophers, scientists, and as you said in the presentation, Mario, it's a ONG, and we work together with a few departments in the United Nations. You see, and I met there other people also interested in this subject. So I could find that um, a lot of people around the world knows about that, especially in the ambience of religion. And um, in many religions, the cosmic consciousness is something that they attribute it to the connection with God, you see. But originally, we may find a lot of reports around the world, very ancient report, with no connection with religion. Too. For instance, Buddha is a very famous report. And he was not in a religious way. He was experiencing his consciousness together with the universe, with other realities. Yeah, well, this is a little bit about my history.
Very good. And we have one question coming from the audience. Giz Garcia. Could you please provide us with serious literature on this subject? At the end of our conversation, yes, we're going to show some books about it, Giz. But the second question, does author Umberto Roldan deal with the subject in the same way that Conscientiology does? Do you guys know the author?
No, unfortunately, no. Umberto Rodin, I don't know. I will check. I will research about him. But I maybe if I could answer that later to our guest and say to her, to him, I don't know exactly where the question was posted, but I will do some research. But as you said, Mario, I think Ulisses will present some books here, which is really serious literature about the subject.
Very
Well,
nice. Okay, Ulisses, do you have any comments about this Umberto Rodin? Or
no, I don't know this author.
right?
I'm looking for his biography right now in the internet, you see. I have never heard about him before, but
Oh,
I will try
right.
to read something about him. But it is important to say that we can talk about cosmic consciousness right now because a few people wrote about that. And this terminology, cosmic consciousness, it has an origin in the Hinduism. And researchers from England, they modified the terminology and they proposed cosmic consciousness in the beginning of the 20th century. So the reports in India helped a lot to build this conception. But more than that, a lot of people could report this experience through history. A lot of people. And with no doubt, the main book was written by Richard Book. This is a recent edition. It's the original edition. It's called Cosmic Consciousness, a study in the evolution of human mind. This is the main book in history. He makes a compilation here. He analyzes 50 personalities and he tries to classify what is and what is not cosmic consciousness. So, probably the main task is for oneself to classify what is happening with him. What happened to me is cosmic consciousness or not? Well, there are a lot of phenomena similar to cosmic consciousness, but they are not.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of phenomena. So it's necessary to study the subject to develop differentiation.
Right. Categorize, yeah. And so we have another comment by Gisma Garcia. Humberto Roden is a Brazilian author and wrote many books, including one entitled Homo a Consciência Cósmica. Wow, it's very good to know, Gis. Thank you
Yeah,
very much for your
We,
contribution.
we will look for it.
yeah, it's not totally. I was not totally unaware about Roberto Rodin. This name is not unfamiliar to me. I think I have heard about this name, but it's a very far memory that I had about this author. But the book, I have to be honest that I haven't read yet.
All right, people. I have one personal question for you. Actually, what is it? What is it, cosmic consciousness? What do you feel when you are there having the the thing? You know, what is it? I'm curious to know exactly. Are you floating in the space? Are you floating in space? Are you in other places? Are you among stars? What are you, and what happens when you are going through a cosmic concept? I'm curious to know this. This is a legitimate question I'm asking you. Let's go.
Yeah. Do you want to start, Ulisses, or do you want to?
Please, please. You
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Mari, it's a very tough question that you are asking us because basically what you are trying to do is to um, try to explain cosmic consciousness with a set of ideas that does not fit with the phenomena because like when you say about the space, some features that we have that is very connected to the brain and to the mind, to the ways that the brain and the mind use to explain phenomena. This is the description you gave to us is the ways that the mind and brain tries to explain phenomena, but cosmic consciousness does not work exactly like this. So it's very hard to place the phenomena, the consciousness in some place or at some point of time. It's a very different dynamic and mechanism that works in this kind of phenomena. But to not try to escape from your question and try to answer your question, the first point of your question is what we feel in this kind of experience. I could say that the experience in itself it's very paradoxical because there's a lot of paradoxes and I will show an example now. Basically, what we feel in the cosmic consciousness is nothing and everything because we feel I could say that we feel nothing because it's an absence of suffering, of I don't know, uneasiness or stresses
concerns. You don't have this.
concerns. Yeah, you do not think bad about anything or anyone. So it's a totally absence of feelings, of bad feelings or feelings at all. And I think this could be represented by the idea of peace. It's basically peace, because there is a obviously there is science behind peace. Peace is not just a philosophical concept that and it's not only in the common sense what is peace about. There's science behind peace, but one conception of peace, as I think we could say here, is that peace resembles or reminds something about absence of everything. In the case of politics, for example, is absence of wars. We know that it's not only about that. Peace is much more than this. But basically, or initially, peace would be the absence of wars, of conflicts. And in the cosmic consciousness experience, we could say basically the same, that because you feel a lot of peacefulness, and that is because there is an absence of conflicts, of stresses, and so on, concerns, like you said, and so on. And so we could say that we feel nothing, and at the same time we feel everything, because we feel that there is a sense of wholeness, an integration feeling with everything, and you feel like it's a feeling of invincibility. You could think about anything, the most atrocious thing in the world, and that would not disturb you. So it's a very strong feeling that nothing can disturb you. You are invincible, you are indestructible, you are infinite, you are eternal. This is the kind of feelings that fulfills us. It's a nothingness, but at the same time, it's a feeling that fulfills us in completely, in a completely way. So I think to try to understand a little better about cosmic consciousness, we in the first point, the beginning of my answer was a little bit I don't know, elusive, and it appeared that I was trying to excuse or run away from the question. But I think the first point that we should have here is to think that we cannot try to explain cosmic consciousness like the brain or the mind tries to explain it. We just putting time or putting in some space to try to reach what really happens. And the second question about what we feel, it's a paradox. It's nothingness, but it's a wholeness at the same time.
Great. Very good explanation. Ulisses.
Well, and there is something very hard to explain. That is the sensation, the perception of the consciousness. How can you say that you are perceiving yourself besides everything else? And this inner perception, to expand it, well, to come closer to this sense, it's very possible if you gradually try to eliminate other sensations. If you go to the inner way of yourself. But in the same way, it's possible to pay attention when you perceive the essence of, of other living beings, of other conditions around you. If you pay attention to the essence of your perception, you may come closer to what we may perceive, what we may feel in the experience of expansion of consciousness. I'm not talking right now about cosmic consciousness. I'm talking about the possibility of expanding your consciousness step by step. And we admit that this may be a way for anyone to come closer to the experience, you see. Um, I have this kind of experience by myself in many different situations, and I also find this kind of process when I read reports. We have a very good example in the poetry of Walt Whitman. He's a poet, and he wrote about that, about feelings and sensations when he is in contact with nature, for instance. You see, and you see, it's very hard to communicate the differences specifically of this phenomenon. But if you pay attention to your condition of pure perception, you may be in that way, you see, in the way to reach the phenomenon of expansion of consciousness. And for a common person, maybe that's not easy. As I said before, the pollution of the mind is something very hard for one to detect. Because if your hand is dirty, you may watch and you may wash your hands. You can see that. But when your mind is dirty, the person doesn't perceive it, because the person is used to that condition. So if somebody wants to improve this condition, the person will perceive the modifications step by step, and he will look for his previous condition, and he will detect that he's in a better condition right now. So the development of perceptions may happen in this way. But more than that, through projectiology, through the experiences outside our body, we may notice very extraordinary experiences and perceptions. A simple out of body experience is something not common, completely different of everything. And in general, it's possible to investigate the condition of our lucidity. When someone dedicates to study and develop this practice, it's possible to find himself with a condition of lucidity closer or higher than the conventional lucidity that we use in our life. But the point is, when you find yourself with a level of lucidity much higher than the usual. So from this point on, we start asking, what is happening? What is going on? And besides that, when this level of lucidity reaches a point, a condition, when everything seems to disappear, and at the same time, you begin to feel everything together, transcending space, time, and you come closer to the sensation of yourself together with this universe. And this way, maybe, surely, the person will be in the path of the expansion of consciousness. I'm not saying that that is cosmic consciousness, as we may classify it. I'm talking about that the person may investigate if this is happening. This person may be in the way to develop the phenomenon. I admit that the full experience of the cosmic consciousness it happens in this way, but in an extraordinary condition, very hard to explain. I understand the words of Rodrigo because we find the same difficulty in the reports of people who had this kind of experience. In general, we don't have words, we don't have vocabulary, terminology to communicate what is going on. So I tried here to transmit the steps for a beginner. This is the way I experience it by myself, you see. So the sensations are related to perception and every kind of perception. For instance, if you are hearing a sound, you may expand your consciousness through the perception of hearing. If you put your attention there to the sound, you may change your consciousness. Anyone can make this kind of experience. If you concentrate your consciousness a lot and you dedicate to it, you will perceive a kind of difference in your consciousness. This is very, very little. This is the way. We consider that this is the way. In the extra-physical dimension, this technique works a lot. And it's very possible for a projector, a person who is experiencing the out-of-body experience, to change the dimension where this person is, when it's possible to expand your lucidity. And so you may check the results. If in the beginning of your experience, you were in a kind of dimension, and you try to expand your consciousness through expanding your lucidity, and the result is that you change the dimension, you met more evolved consciousness, the dimension, you went to another evolved dimension, probably something happened. So you may check this condition, you may check your inner condition. So how clear is your mind, your lucidity, your feelings, the level you are feeling in terms of ethics. So I'm proposing here that you may observe the consequences to evaluate what is going on. You see? This is more than simply observing the sensations or the feelings. When we talk about cosmic consciousness, it's very important to observe the consequences. What happens with the life of the person in terms of ethics, assistance, and the way the person start considering the whole life. If we find a considerable change, probably an expansion of consciousness happened.
I see. I was going through another question, more or less in the same line that you were talking about, but maybe I would like to clarify it a bit more. The thing is, one of the thing, what the most important thing I would say, the most important thing for me when you study conscientiology is the subjectivity. Okay, because each one of us, we have a different kind of experience, different perceptions according to our inner condition or state or whatever. The subjectivity is very important, and one of the pillars that is also very important is the self-research, right? When we are going through this, having the experiences to study more and knowing more about us, multidimensionally speaking. And one thing that I would like to go through now is when you have a cosmic consciousness, right? I understand as an extrapolation. It is not a very common thing. Even when I go through paradidactic experience, it's a privilege because it's the moment that we are outside of a body, seeing or witnessing something that we have to change or reframe in our personality in the evolutionary process. That's very, very important. And also when you go through exo projections like this, right? Each phenomena has one reason, and that's my question now for you, right?
Okay.
What should we ask? Because the question that comes after the experience is the most important. Is why have I gone through it? What have I learned from it? And how can I apply? Or
Okay.
even why has it just happened to me?
Okay. I
Right?
can say a few words and then I'd like to listen to Rodrigo. Well, why expansion of consciousness and cosmic consciousness is important for people, and why are we talking about it right now? What's the importance of that?
Yeah.
I see that we're talking about the quality of perception and the quality of moral life of one person. So, one of the most important things in life for me is when I perceive the reality of other consciousness and when I perceive my reality. See, when you are talking with someone and you notice that the other person perceives you in a way that your necessities are seen, the other person can really feel your necessities and can adjust, can give you something that is really important for you. So the quality of perception is in the basics of this condition. And the phenomenon of expansion of consciousness probably is the best way for you to live in this world, to see life as it is, to see other consciousness as they are, and to see you as you are. I can look to myself as I am. So it's for me, it's very difficult to find something more important than those conditions. So for me, this is one of the main reasons to study this phenomenon and to seek for it, to try to develop myself in this way. But I know Rodrigo, I know his research, and I would also ask him to talk a few words more about evolution. Rodrigo is studying it a lot for the importance in this situation. Okay? So I give my little contribution and I would like to listen to Rodrigo. He has a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to say, but a few words to that I can add on. But Mario, I would like to come back a little quick in your previous question because I was thinking about what you asked me about the place and where we put ourselves in that kind of experience. But I would like to ask you a question also to just to think about what you asked me. Um, where would you put the phenomena of intuition? How do you establish a nexus of causality in the phenomena of intuition or in the phenomena of synchronicity? How do you establish a nexus of causality, a cause and an effect nexus between what happens? So when we have a clairvoyance, we can establish that. So there is a materialization. I don't know. It could be a physical phenomena or something that we have a mental clairvoyance. We have that mental image that comes to our mind, and we can establish where it's happening and when it's happening in space time. But when we perceive or when we realize something about intuition or synchronicity, we cannot establish that easily. We could try, but it's very hard to do it. So cosmic consciousness is basically the same. We don't know exactly what happens. And I think it's almost impossible to describe exactly what happens because we are conditioned to our brain and to our mind limits. So cosmic consciousness is something that happens beyond our mind and our brain. And it's very difficult to explain something that happens beyond our mind and brain with our mind and our brain. So that is the difficulty we have here. But answering the next question you asked us, I think the evolutionary process that we are into as consciousness has it's totally linked to the cosmic consciousness phenomena, because we don't see any other way except the evolution path to develop consciousness expansions and the cosmic consciousness phenomena. So I think, to better understand the cosmic consciousness, first we should first understand what is the evolution of the consciousness as Conscientiology proposes, because there is a lot of concepts about evolution. We have evolutionism, which is something very ancient and old from philosophy. We have ideas from evolution from religions, and more recent from the science, from Darwinian evolution. But that doesn't have anything to do about the consciousness evolution that we are proposing here in Conscientiology. But if I had to summarize what is consciousness evolution, Ulisses already said it. It's something very related to the moral concerns and moral aspects. So we should question ourselves. What are our values for our lives? What are the values, the principles that guides my life? What are them? Because I think this is it's a very basic point that we should start with, but it's at the same time, it's basic but very important, because depending on the values and the principles we have in our lives, it will determine everything else that we do and how do we behave ourselves. That depends on our values and principles. So my advice for those who are trying to understand a little bit more about cosmic consciousness is to think, what are the values and the principles which will allow me or help me to evolve myself? What are them? So when we discover them and we start to apply them in our lives, we have a really consistent way to have consciousness expansion and cosmic conscious at the end. So just to give an example, I think Ulisses already said, but the assistentiality process, the intention to help other people and to help other people in practice, it's a very important value to our evolution. So when we put that in action, we have a really consistent way to develop consciousness expansions and cosmic consciousness. So this is just one, but I could say a little bit more, but I think we do not have much time, because I think there are a lot of books that Ulisses have to bring to us here now.
Yes, we're just going to go over them there when we are close to finish. Yeah, but let me just go back to that question, because I think it's very important. I think that when we go through an experience, whichever experience it might be, right? Or clairaudience, clairvoyance, paradidactic projections, any of them. It tells a bit about what we are doing, right? Because nothing happens by fluke. There is always should we really stop and think, wow, I had a cosmic consciousness, so I think I've got something serious to do with it. Does it cross your mind? Is it at that level?
Yes, Totally.
Because, listen,
Yes,
we cannot belittle this, like say, oh no, yeah, yesterday I had a cosmic consciousness, man, nothing
Mario,
special.
I will recall here a very important philosopher, which was Spider-Man. Spider-Man, because it's very famous, a famous sentence that he heard after the death of his uncle, that great powers give great responsibility,
Yeah,
and knowledge is a great power, and cosmic consciousness gives a great power to us. So at the same time, we have great responsibilities. And I think that this is a problem, because when we realize what, in the most basic reality, what consciousness is and what is expecting us in the future, I think it's not a near future, but at some point in the future, it's a very powerful thing to think about, because it's very self-convincing, that is it's our reality. That shows to us who we really are. So that's a really strong knowledge that we acquire from this experience. So at the same time comes also a great responsibility, and makes us to ask ourselves what are our values and principles, I was saying before.
definitely. We must really watch out the extrapolations because they have a reason for to happen.
Yes.
Ulysses.
I don't admit that someone could say that he experienced the cosmic consciousness if after that this person doesn't take a tremendous change in the life.
That's very
I don't
important.
admit that because the priorities, the sense of life, the sense of the necessity of existing other people, the sense of creating existential projects, professional existential projects. That's very clear. And Richard Book was a researcher who wrote this book, the main book about this subject. Half of this book is dedicated to evaluate people who probably had this experience. And most of them created important projects for humanity. So this is one of the characteristics of this phenomenon, the consequences in the life of the experimenter. You see. So if one person just say, "Oh, I had experience," and the person becomes happy with that, and nothing changes, probably he could have a kind of ecstasies or another experience, but not considerable expansion of consciousness. Because expansion of consciousness is essentially perception. And perception means to perceive other people, to perceive the universe. And when you perceive what's happening in our world, it's impossible for you to stay the same. You see, when if you admit someone that lives together with other people, and this person don't perceive what happens, when he starts perceiving really what's going on, this person may move to change things. So in the world, the history of this phenomenon is full of recycling lives, people who recycle their lives to help this world. So this is probably the main consequence of this phenomenon for the real life, for the intraphysical life. So we may study biographies of those people. This is much more important than to look for reports of sensations. You see, it's much more important what this person is doing to benefit life and this world. This is much more important, you see, as a consequence of an expansion of consciousness.
Very good, Ulisses. I think it was a good wrap up because our time is over, and we have some comments here. Fascinating and challenging topic, said Ricardo Botelho. Ricardo Botelho, thank you for your participation. Here in the chat, right in the comments, we have some suggestions of books, as Ulisses said. Cosmic Consciousness, a study in the evolution of the human mind by Richard Buke. We have another one that, let me just try to put this one. Yes, The Tertium Organium by Petri Ouspensky, right?
Yes. This book is important because in the last chapter, Ouspensky, he develops a criticism on the work of Richard Buke. So Ouspensky, he analyzes the book that Richard Buke wrote about cosmic consciousness. This is very interesting. You see the criticism on the subject.
That's very important.
Another suggestions also, Mary.
The Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley is another what Ulisses is suggesting, right? And this one. Let me just show here. Yeah, here we go. This is the first one. Then we have this 13 Organum, right? The Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley.
Show the John White Willis is the John White book.
Yes. This is a review book, a compilation. You see, the
this one is John White
of consciousness. This is not an original text, but it's a review. John White here dedicated to study the contribution of many authors here. Because of that, this book is important. It's not a small book. It's
the highest states of consciousness.
It has a lot of content, you see. But I may suggest this book, technically, this book is one of the most important books, technically. It was written centuries ago, in the 16th century, by Patanjali, and it's about yoga. But the essence of yoga, that is to reach the cosmic consciousness. You see?
Yes.
Rodrigo, he prepared a course, a class about this book. This book is very accessible. This one is Portuguese, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But everywhere around the world, you may find it.
Very cheap, very easy to read, very good book.
Yes.
Very nice, people. Yes, we are definitely out of time here. Rodrigo, your wrap-up words to finish our conversation today.
Yeah, just to thank you, Mario, and all the crew that helped us today and everyone that watched us. It was really a pleasure to talk about cosmic consciousness, and I hope to have other opportunities to talk more about this topic.
Ulisses.
Well, thank you so much. And I think that this subject is not only for special people, it's for everyone who wants to improve in themselves, to look for the perception of reality, to look for what is really happening around and with himself, you see. So there is another subject that I call the gradual expansion of consciousness. This is fully possible, accessible to anyone, if you can pay attention to the possibility of expanding your consciousness little by little. This is something very possible. So, and you may transform this subject something useful for your life. Not only to consider this subject as something very, very high level that only very few people can reach. No, you may access this experience if you pay attention and if you give value to little steps of improving your perception, your personal ethics, and things like that. Okay? So thank you very much for the opportunity. And if we have the possibility, we can talk more about that in other opportunities. Thank you.
Very nice, and it's very important. It's a very good thing to say to finish our conversation. That is, it's a privilege when we have a paraphenomenon, right? As we live in an intraphysical world. So to cross the boundary of the dimension is something that is remarkable for us to know ourselves more. What for? What for? Why the parapsychism is so important? Why this experience outside of the body they are so important? Because they show more about ourselves in another from another perspective, from another dimension. And it's as the guy said, it's always a very essential and important knowledge that we have about ourselves. So take advantage of every experience that you have because they will show you a bit more of yourselves. Next Let's Talk happens in February 17th. The topic will be Conscientiology in Germany. Right? Stefania Pereira says, thank you for this activity. Thank you, Stefania, for your participation. Thank you, guys, for your participation. Rodrigo, Ulisses, that was a great conversation. The energy was really high level. And that's that, people. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next Let's Talk. Bye-bye.
Thank you.